Welcome back, everyone, to another edition of the Daily Night. I am your host, Brian Smith, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about UCF's defense, where it's at and where it's going to be in about 2 years. But to do that, you got to define and have a base. And quite frankly, the SMU game really kind of showed all the weaknesses that UCF has in terms of its depth chart. And that's something you're going to hear me say quite a bit during this podcast, and why UCF has to recruit. So with that, a couple of notes throughout this week on Inside the Knights on Fan Nation, powered by Sports Illustrated. I'll be talking a little bit about this and using comparisons from other programs, whether it could be Virginia to USC, from Northwestern to Miami, across the country. There are a lot of teams that are quote unquote in flux on defense because of all the advantages that offenses have. And the only way to really make it work, and again, this is just kind of a random comparison. You hear the phrase throw money at it. Well, you throw recruiting at this, which happens with money. You have to find a way to get more players. I'm looking at the defensive stats right now from the game yesterday. Powell led the team in tackles. I mean, he's not even a guy that's really played that much. They just threw in different guys, and they got a ton of injuries. They were trying anything they could. They flat out got smashed by SMU. And again, I'll break it down individually. But the overall theme here, they've just got to get better players for depth. I don't think the starters are the issue. They just cannot rotate guys in and out. And then on top of it, yet again, there's no way around this. They cannot handle big-time teams without Clea in the lineup. And he's out for the season. So that's a problem. They need more. They need one or two more guys that are just straight-up NFL ballers, but the depth is the issue. So I have 4 categories that I'm going to talk about. The first one, though, I want to discuss because I don't believe that it is as much a talent issue as it is on the players. I know Travis and David, the coordinators for the Knights, fans always blame coaches. The reason? You can get rid of coaches. You can't just change your roster. Well, I got news for UCF fans. This is not a coaching issue. At the end of every season, and it doesn't matter if it's Alabama, UCF, or anybody in between, you get into the final month of the season. In practice in college football, it is pretty much like 7-on-7 for the most part. And I mean that. The reason is injuries, and UCF is more banged up than probably any team in the country. So it's probably even more so. They're just in a horrific situation. You're not going to tackle as well. Yesterday's tackling, though, was beyond that. It goes beyond the physicality. It's the angles. Some of the angles that I saw guys take to try to tackle some pretty darn good football players for SMU. Let's give them credit. Let's give them credit. They are good, but they were just handed a gift basket. I don't know what UCF's DBs in particular were doing. Some of the linebacker play was good at times, and then it was bad. It was random. When Bryson came out of the game, that did not help the cause. I'm sitting here going through and looking at the defensive statistics. I do not see Bryson on it. I mean, he came out early. You can't lose guys like that. You just can't. He's one of the top 5 players on the defense, arguably top 2 or 3, depending on how you want to look at it. They lost him too. I mean, it's just the injury things are just mind-blowing to me. But the angles that were taken by DBs and to some degree linebackers was horrific on a lot of plays. And I might as well pull up the statistics for the running game, which is the secondary part of what in the heck goes on with SMU. And that offense is just a nightmare to take on. 14 carries, 97 yards for Bentley. Siggers, 11 carries, 93 yards. First guy, 6.9 yards per tote. The second, 8.5. Siggers in particular drives me nuts because his long was 33. That's a pretty good run, don't get me wrong. But even if you take that out, he has 60 yards on 10 carries. That's 6 yards a tote just random. If you're giving up 6 yards a carry at any level, you're getting destroyed, especially when you put a guy like Mordecai at quarterback. A lot of the reason for those yards, poor angles to the ball carrier. This is something they've been taught forever. This is prior to UCF. This is not a UCF coaching problem. This is a player problem. Again, player problem. There's no way around that. This is not something that is really that difficult because, quite frankly, this is something that's taught any place that I've been, high school or college level, tackling angles and things. Those drills are just about as universal as it gets. There's a little bit of a different way you can do it, but it's just innate. Some of the guys for UCF yesterday were just in their own world. I have no idea why. No idea. And then the effort from the SMU players, again, give them credit. Once they were getting wrapped up, they always fell forward, always an extra yard. They wanted it more than UCF. And UCF was winning 14-7. You're thinking, well, there's going to be a shootout, but, we got a chance. And then the offense fell on its face too. And like the defense they just exhaled and never took another breath. There's a vibe there. I don't know what it is, but I'm not liking the vibe between the offense and defense either. That's story for another day. But tackling was the number one thing from this game yesterday that I saw that is a disaster at UCF right now. And unfortunately, I know fans are probably screaming and throwing things at their screen as they listen to me. There's nothing that UCF coaches can do about it because you can't go back to tackling in practice at this point of the year. If you do, with the injuries they have, you can just put a match out there next to a kerosene heater and see how well that goes. It does not work this late in the season. Everybody goes shells for most of the part. NFL pretty much does it the entire season now. Their rules are ridiculous, and that's why tackling in the NFL is a joke. But UCF is not going to be able to. This is just going to have to be film study and some basic drills, again, in practice, and then pride. UCF did not show enough pride when they tackled yesterday. I'm straight up pointing at every single guy that played defense for UCF yesterday. I don't care if you had a sack, an interception. I don't care if you had a tackle for loss. Somebody in every play was just, the angles were horrific. Why? I have no idea. And especially once a guy got past the D-line, he's 2 yards past the line of scrimmage, it was bad. All right, enough on that, but it drives me nuts. On a unique kind of note here, in kind of leading into the final point, I've got 4, recruiting being the 4th. Special plays. When you play on the road against a good team, you've got to have a couple of plays that change a game. The play by Tatum Bethune where he picked it off was as perfect a play as you're going to see at the NFL level or anything else. It's one of the best plays I've seen this year in college football, regardless of the team in question. He was on a blitz. It was a screen. He stopped in his tracks. He found out where the ball was going to go, broke down, waited for the ball to be thrown, and from a very close range, snagged it. That is flat out NFL play. 2 reasons I bring that up. Number 1, just congrats to him for making a tremendous football play. Number 2, how many other plays like that did UCF make? Doesn't quite have to be to that. I mean, again, that was phenomenal. How many other plays like that did they make? This is a situation, again, this is on players. You have to recognize your surroundings. This is game 10 of the season. They throw the ball short and let their playmakers do things. Were there any plays where the ball was getting poked out after a screen or a short drag? Were there any plays where they had the opportunity to hit the quarterback in the backfield and they hit him in the elbow and pop the ball? Little things like that change a game. You get a scoop and score when you're up 14-7. One play. Don't you think that would help the UCF offense, the special teams, and of course your own defense? One play. They couldn't do it. And then from the point it was 14-7, it was an annihilation. Sheer annihilation. I'm more concerned about the effort because the special plays, Tatum, again, that was just phenomenal. But after he did that, you would think they would go up. Heck, they went down. They didn't have I don't understand that. I'm completely lost on it. I'm not going to talk much about this because I don't have an answer for it. But usually those kind of things in that same category will snowball downhill. I didn't see that at all. And I don't know why. Tatum Bethune is a special football player when he wants to be, but he also needs guys around him. It's a team sport. Some of the other guys, whether, not holding their gap, not bringing the ball carrier down, he wasn't putting as many good positions as possible. And he sometimes let his teammates down as well. He wasn't that great. And he kind of talked about it in the press conference after the game. I don't think there's a way to evaluate Tatum or anybody else on the defense individually without saying this is a collective problem as well. They needed to make some kind of other play. When they were up 14-7, hey, we got a chance to put our foot on their throat here. Our offense just scored 2 touchdowns. Boom, boom. If we get something here, and they didn't do it on the next 2-3. I mean, it's not just one possession, 2 or 3 drives. If we can get a special play, a pick six, a fumble or something like that to make Mordecai think, because he didn't have a good game prior to the UCF game. He had some moments that he was off. He actually met with their head coach a couple times this past week because of it. Yet UCF let him off the hook. They didn't do a good job. So that's a problem. Third one is something that I can't remember the last podcast that I did or article I did talking about the UCF defense or the team, generically speaking, that I didn't mention the following: injuries. This is ridiculous. I know that the coaching staff, you could only put in the next guy. I get that. But the injury situation completely gassed UCF. And it goes back to the special plays thing. It would have given them a little more cushion. They just don't have enough guys to rotate when you play an up-tempo team that passes and spreads you out horizontally to be in a track meet. Any team that can run a track meet against UCF, I don't care who their bowl opponent is. I don't care if it ends up being a 6-6 team. If they run air raid and UCF is in the similar situation they're in now with injuries and, inexperienced secondary, etc., they're going to be in trouble. They do not do well with it. It's part of just the world we're in. You're going to be in a situation that every team tries to put attrition on you just by making you tired. Screen, 5-yard hitch, 5-yard out, short crosser, everything is run horizontal. Everything. And SMU's got some guys at receiver. I knew they were good, and I'd studied them. I'd watched some film. I'd seen them on TV. But like sitting there and just watching on the screen, you're just like, you got to be kidding me, because he was throwing darts. And every now and then he would launch one. He still isn't the most accurate kid. But when he was on in some stretches, man, he was freaking good. And UCF had no answer. Part of that, again, Kalia being out for a game like this is catastrophic. You need somebody that is a game wrecker. Barber had the tremendous stuff early in the game. He wasn't tired yet. They don't have another guy in his stratosphere inside. They don't. They have good football players. They don't have a guy that's going to get paid. He's the only one that I see. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's the only guy. You need 3 or 4 of those guys when you're playing SMU. Let me say that again. 3 or 4. They have 1. Injuries to Kalia and other guys, just generically on defense, reps they've missed in practice. Even Bethune has missed reps. Too many guys have been out, and it's kind of showed. Now, I'll say this on that note. Corey Thornton missed some time this year, and he wasn't playing well up until that point. He has improved, actually, after he come back from injury. So hats off to Corey. He's done much better, and he had some good moments yesterday. I just think that the rhythm of the defense has been absolutely shellacked. So before I go into the final segment, here's your question for today. Based on what you've seen collectively, you got to use sound judgment here or you're going to fail yourself. Collectively throughout the season, which position or position groups, maybe like all of the secondary, not just middle linebacker, the entire linebacker group, not DN, but the entire D-line, which one do you think that UCF needs to land that star player, whether it's transfer, whether it's a kid that just develops on the roster, whether it's a high school recruit, whatever, use your own judgment. Which position does UCF need a playmaker moving forward that starting at 22 steps out, and this is the guy? He is a tremendous player. He's the guy. For me, it's corner, and I think that Brown can be that guy. Adams might be that guy too. But you always got to recruit more. They've got good players coming in there. So I'm happy about corner. That's the good news. The other one is always pass rusher. Seliscar didn't have a great game yesterday. He had some moments there he was good. But to me, Tremon Morris-Brash is that guy. He has shown flashes in every game, just getting a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. He missed the first couple games suspended. He is a dude. They have 3 good DNs. SMU did a nice job with their quick game of basically eliminating them, and that's why that game works, and it's why the air raid is so frustrating. But if they can continue to get guys like him overall for about 8 out of the 12 games that you play, you'll be fine. When you play those elite teams, Cincinnati, SMU, etc., that can score both running and passing, that's when you need a plethora of them so you can rotate them. They can't have plays where they're half-gassed and trying to make it happen. They got to be able to rotate. UCF's depth is not there. And that's what this segment, the final piece, is about, recruiting. If you look at UCF's recruiting situation, Keanis Thompson's going to come and play next year. Nakaya Nakai, he's going to play next year. I don't think there's any doubt that the twins from Seminole are going to play. They have impact players. I've been told multiple times they are waiting on the portal as it relates to high school kids, like most colleges, for the class of 22 from this point through signing day, which is the 15th of December. They need 2, if not 3, and I'm being conservative here, transfers that make an impact on next year's defense. And make an impact is a very generic term, but it's part of recruiting now. It is part of recruiting. The way I've evaluated it for 30 years is out the window, especially for UCF. And Power 5 is kind of that way in certain spots, certain schools, but at the G5 level, it's definitely that way. And I know they're trying to say UCF is not a Power 5 school yet. Number one, by definition, because they're not in the Big 12 yet, and the roster is nowhere near Power 5 yet. It is not. That's why this year, and Gus has talked about this numerous times, they have to get 2 or 3 guys that impact the defense. And that does not mean that you have to start, because everything is situational on defense. It could be a linebacker, kind of like Bryson. That guy can play inside. He can play the overhang. He can blitz. If he was just rotating in and out and he was situational for third, he would be an impact player, just to define that. But they need to get another pass. You need a pass rusher in every class. That never changes. And I mean a guy they have to look at and say, okay, where's he at? Every class. At least 1. Period. And preferably 2. You're not going to get many chances to hit the quarterback now in college football because of how the quick game works and all that. But when you do have that chance, you need a guy out there that's fresh, meaning you're rotating guys. If your second string guy is not that good, that one chance you may have to really, knock the football loose, deflect it, get an interception is diminished. Must have pass rushers in every single recruiting class, period. With that, they also got corners. They've got 2 really good corners coming in. They're good. That's the good news. Linebacker, I'd like to see them get somebody that's a tremendous guy in coverage. And I know that is like the holy grail of linebacker recruiting, because very few of those guys can catch and very few of them have much understanding coming from the high school level. It's totally different. Coming from the high school level and understanding how it is to play in cover 3, cover 2, Tampa 2, and just all the different fire zone things that you can do. Walking in the door, there aren't many guys that can do that. That's what they need. They don't have enough depth at linebacker. That is a big concern of mine. I'm not concerned about necessarily starter. Tatum will be back. Jeremiah will be back. They're okay, but they don't have enough guys depth-wise there. And as I kind of go back, looking at the stats, if you look at UCF's defense yesterday, and that's probably a terrible way to do it, Quadric Bullard, while a very good football player, is making way too many tackles. And while he's probably the best one-on-one tackler on the defense, it's arguable, but it's what I would say. I think he's the best one-on-one guy. I'd say Bryson's right there too. They have to get more guys in the front 7 making one-on-one tackles that are just based on skill. My dude is better than your dude. And that's a problem. UCF doesn't have that right now. And quite frankly, I'm not sure how quick it'll happen because, again, we're just waiting on the portal. The next month to that end in recruiting is vital. UCF is going to be battling, teams like Tennessee and LSU for transfers. Teams like Clemson and Georgia for transfers. It's weird with the portal. Kids don't look at it quite the same from what little data there is. Big Cat could have went to any school. He picked UCF. Part of that, I get is the relationship. But when it's a 1-year deal, most kids don't care about the win-loss rate. It's just true. They're trying to go somewhere they play the most, get the most film, get the most stats to get drafted, period. So UCF is going to have that advantage over Alabama. You're not going to just walk into Alabama, I'm going to be your starting nose guard. Really? Are you? That's why they don't do quite as well. There are a few exceptions, but by and large, Alabama's not going to get those kids. It's too hard to play. UCF has an advantage. They have to strike while the iron is hot. They've got a program that people are interested in, but because of the injuries, they can say, look, we would have been better if it wasn't for the injuries. And they're right. Come down to Orlando, check it out. State of Orlando here. This is what we do. We've got a good high school program as far as recruiting. You are the finishing touch. Come see us. I think just looking at the paper and looking at these stats, you got Powell, a guy that I barely know. I've only seen him play a little bit for UCF, and no idea what to expect from him. I have no idea how they take that next step without the portal. because you're not traditionally going to just make that next step. And they're going to lose some guys. They're going to lose Bryant. They're obviously Klee is done. They're going to lose him. That's important pieces, man. When you lose NFL talent up front, just from a physical standpoint, especially Klee, because 3 techniques that can rush the passer and move the pocket back are uber rare for any level, Georgia, anywhere else. How do you replace him? The portal's your best chance. High school kids aren't as strong. Like Keanu is a really good football player, and I think he'll play in the NFL. Is he going to be great at UCF as a freshman coming from Lakeland High School? Probably not. He'll be situational. He'll play some. He'll play about 20% of the defensive snaps next year. Doesn't mean he can't start a game or something if the guy's out. Like, I'm sure Tremont will probably start next year. If he's hurt, could he help for one? Sure. But that's not what you want. You need another guy coming in from the portal to make that happen. To wrap this up, one last point here. I don't have any sense of how many guys you take in the portal and how many high school guys. I get asked that a lot, talking to high school coaches and scouting. I was up in Georgia scouting on Friday, and I was talking to a coach about, hey, this guy's got a superstar running back. And we were just talking about some of his kids. This kid doesn't have offers, this kid. And I said, man, everybody I talk to, they're waiting on the portal. But that's very generic. How many guys, UCF or any other school, how many guys are you going to take from the portal? What is your goal? And here's where it gets very convoluted. Well, you don't even know who the heck's going to put in. And I'm sure UCF and every other school, flat out, I guarantee you every school in some way, shape, or form has information they shouldn't have, meaning these kids call. And I'll bet you there are a lot of colleges calling kids illegally constantly, especially in the SEC. Let's not kid ourselves. Hey, why don't you leave? They suck. Come play with us next year. Guarantee you that's going on. That being stated, how do you project numbers? This is something I have no clue. And I flat out consider myself a recruiting expert. But with the portal, you don't know who the heck the players are going to be. Just because a guy calls you up and says, yeah, I'm transferring. I'm just picking a random school. I'm going to leave Auburn. I'm going to leave Georgia Tech. I'm going to leave Texas A&M. They could change their mind. How do you project? It's very, very hard. So recruiting, December 15th is humongous for UCF. I cannot wait to see what ends up happening. UCF fans should follow it closely. I have backed away from recruiting quite a bit this year because of the portal. From talking to people around the program, they're waiting on it. I have no way to scout the portal. I can't do it. That's why I've concentrated more on underclassmen. And quite frankly, the class of 23 in the state of Florida is phenomenal. So I've been scouting a lot of those kids. Next year will be a little easier for me because of it. But the portal is going to be everything for UCF and probably for a lot of teams. If you don't have a guy at a spot, you go to the portal. I know it hurts the seniors in high school, but that's just the way it is. So anyway, everybody have a great day. I think this is going to be a challenging situation for UCF going into the UConn game and then USF game, but they've got to get better with what they had. The injuries have killed them. Recruiting is what I'm going to be talking about now for the next month, because to me, the season is kind of wrapped up for the most part. I know Gus won't talk about it that way, but it is what it is. So everybody have a great day, and I will talk to you soon.